Well, Coach, how have you been?
Good, Dan. This time of year, anytime you can get the 5 games in 9 days out of the way
Yeah.
and come out of it without any significant injuries and be able to have a few wins under your belt, it's good.
Yeah. I noticed, I was here for your first year, all those practices, and last year you practiced, and this year, a little less yelling this year. A little less, you get to save your vocal cords for the game, it seems like.
Yeah, that's the progression of building anything, right? I mean, there's definitely always significant work, but I think the work behind the scenes is still as significant as it was. It's just the plays and the buy-in for how you want to do things is received in a way that it gets carried over faster. So
Yeah.
you're able to have have a lot of belief in what you do before you step on the floor, and they've been able to see the results have positive success. So it makes it easier for them to come back out and trust that this is going to work.
Real quick, I want to talk about your staff because I feel like a lot of people don't know, obviously, top to bottom. It's hard to know every single coach and then what their significance is, but I know them and they're amazing guys, but then just every single guy in their position seems like they're excelling and they're really helping this team, helping this program grow.
Yeah, I mean, if people were to come to practice like you're able to do, they'd see that I get the title of being the head coach, but we've got guys that are more significant than I am in regard to the coaching part of it. And just, Ross Hodge is elite. There's no other way to describe it. You go look at his win percentage as a head coach, and it's elite. His ability to have high expectation and to communicate those expectations is really remarkable. And it shows in the way he's taken over the defense this year. It shows in the way our defense has just been the only chance we have to win, and what's kept us in winning. We got Matt Breyer, who's just from a feel standpoint and from a understanding of the game of basketball and how he's able to communicate it. It's not as loud a voice in practice, but man, his feel for the game is through the roof, and he has great relationships with guys, and and to round out the coaches and Dream Dowling. I mean, what you want to talk about the heartbeat of our program? I mean, I think it is Reem. He has such good basketball experience because of his international experience, because who he's coached, that he's able to put his own feel on it. I watched him coach as a prep school coach, and his defense, and he taught his own, his practices were crazy good organized, and what he did and how he communicated what they did in the zone. And they were one of the best prep school teams at the time. And he started the program from scratch. So, I mean, I just got a chance to not only see all these guys coach in their own individual way, but how they ultimately care about people is what separates it. It's what they do when they leave this court that allows them to have the impact that they have on the court. And then you got Andy Schmidt, you got Chris Blakely, and you got the one and only Nelson Haggerty, which is, like a dream for me to be able to work with a guy again that I completely trust and who's had remarkable influence. But, all those guys have such good feel, but they also have high expectation for how they do things. But it's matched with a personal touch that is based on relationships, and that's how you know that you can actually make an impact, is when people trust you and believe in you as a person, not just a basketball coach.
Sure. Now, after going 8-10 in conference the last 2 years, starting off 8-1 in the first half of conference play, just how does it feel for you as a head coach in your third year to finally see these results? And obviously, I've started off strong before, but to start off conference play with 8-1, top of the conference, just how does it feel?
It feels like there's a lot of work to do, honestly, because what we've tried to do is focus on the possessions and the plays that there needs to be improvement in the places that we have improved. So honestly, it's an end of the season evaluation feel to it. And the only thing it does remind us is those gaps that we have, I think, in how we need to be a great basketball team are starting to close. That's the one part of it that you do sense with this team, that there's an understanding and there's an execution It's not just, hey, we understand what we're supposed to do, or hey, we're trying to do what you want us to do. There's just 5 guys on the floor at a time that really do, make the plays happen, not just, it's by chance.
Yeah, and you're so driven to continue to improve this team. Where does this team take that next step, continue to improve just throughout this second half of conference play?
Yeah, I think one area defensively, our rotation part has gotten good, but the completing it with rebounds is really, there's been enough confusion in some of our rotations defensively that's limited our ability to rebound defensively. And our first 2 years here, we were one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the country, and now we're kind of middle top. Mm-hmm. And that has to do with a lot of the way that we're moving defensively and taking ourselves out of good rebounding position. I think a guy specifically that's made huge strides in that area is James Reese for us recently. He's taken over a few games with his offensive and defensive rebounding. So that's where we've seen probably that gap close a little more. And then on the offensive end, our ability to play the game without turning it over has really helped us.
Now, obviously, players have stepped up. Players have continued to evolve offensively. Javion Hamlet, most notably, taking huge steps forward, really taking reins of the offense. How have you seen him kind of evolve as a player, and then also how have you, as a coach, gone about keeping other players involved, keeping their progression in a similar path?
One area that's always the emphasis for us is the defensive side. That's the thing that I think people take into account when they watch you play. They just don't take into account maybe the effort that's required to do that. And so for Javion, it was like that part of it was such a huge, when you play 35 minutes, you can kind of manage the game defensively. We didn't want him to manage it. We wanted him to put, force on the game defensively, right? Not just try to figure out how to stay on the floor so he can be good at offense. And I just took a lot out of him to start the season. And we put a lot of load on him as far as making decisions, and he was second guessing himself. One, he watched 2 possessions at the end of the game and how he walled up defenders trying to use ball screens and refusing. He was not doing that earlier in the year. And that's at the 40-minute mark of the game, 39-minute mark. And 2, offensively, he's just begun to put his own offensive scoring part to it, not just trying to do what we want him to do in facilitating offense. So really just I think what he's done is he's expressed the needs of the team, have told them, like, hey, coach, we need Javion to be aggressive. So I've been on him about how he needs to make reads, and they're like, coach, we need him to score and be aggressive. And he wants to help his teammates. So he's like, that coach, they said they want me to go be aggressive. And I think he just found a way to put those 2 together where he goes and scores. You see his pull-ups, you see his threes, you see his floater, but then he's also making big plays at the end of games, getting it to the right guy. So he's done a great job of playing hard defensively for the entire time he's out there and finding a way to be aggressive and score and not just try to run a team.
Yeah, and that was the biggest change coming into this season, was that point guard position going from Ryan, who went to Gonzaga, to Javion. What has Javion brought this program that you feel like this program needed, from whether it's personality standpoint or just a leadership standpoint?
Yeah, he does a good job of really connecting and making the emphasis, and everybody did. So did Ryan, did this, but just in his own way, he's found a way to always engage those teammates even off the floor. And this is Jared, one of our managers, is phenomenal, right? He's kind of the one that's like always in the middle of it with Coach Ream. They seem to be like always figuring out ways to touch everybody in the program. And he just comes into my office 2 weeks ago and says, Coach, I've never been around a team. He's done a lot of different teams because he's done a lot of different roles. And I've never been a part of a team that's close. There are no cliques. And that's just, I think, a credit to guys like Javion, in that they just go touch everybody. They're always trying to figure out a way to keep him engaged and keep him engaged. And that's what good point guards do. They're always trying to figure out a way to keep everybody involved and just give them a taste of enough of what it means to be successful so that they can continue to help the team win. This really has been a good connector for our team.
Yeah. We talked about it early in the season, all the new additions y'all had, bringing in 5 new players. Reese, Thomas, Javion, all junior college players, and then Dang, graduate transfer. what went into your decision to kind of bring in these transfers and bring in these experienced guys that can help this team win right now? Why was it important for this program to take that step this year?
Well, last year we knew that we had a good basketball team because of the way we progressed through the CBI and because of the way we played in Italy, and we knew what the formula was for the team. And what I didn't take into account was the significant losses that we could have had. I mean, I always thought, well, maybe somebody else will step up. And one thing about college basketball, if you look across the board, like teams with the most experience have the most success. I mean, especially early, but as the season goes on, you can bring other people along, but the experience factor is significant. And there's obviously a lot of freshmen that can come in and make. I mean, like Mo did last year, and just really make an impact right away. And that's definitely has a lot to do with your love for the game and how you deal with, failure. But for us, we knew that we wanted to have more depth, and we felt like the best way for us to build a team would be to add experience to the depth, to give, guys that were redshirting last year that didn't necessarily get to play, take the pressure off of them.
Yeah, and we talked about the past 2 years already, but obviously having success in the CBI tournament and then going on the following year and starting off 16-1 and then kind of faltering off at the end with injuries and whatnot. How much did those 2 years set the foundation for this program and just kind of building what you want?
Oh, and Jordan Duffy, Mike Miller, Tope. I mean, those guys, what they did as on a daily basis in practice. I mean, like what we put them through to get where we were going, and I watched that last game that we played not too long ago, and Mike's limping on one foot that was broke and played the last 3 games on a broke foot. Ryan had a fractured kneecap and was playing. Zach was playing on
it was incredible.
Literally everybody had injuries, and that's where I was like, I'm not doing that again. And that's where we've managed this team a little differently. But I think you have to go through that to get to where you're at now as a program. That's why I'll always reference those guys when we look back at great seasons, if we're fortunate enough to have some great ones and we're blessed to win some basketball games. But even at this point, I give a lot of credit to those guys. And Mo went through it. I mean, Mo was in here just. I mean, his from his first week here when he literally turned it over, I think 5 times, like on outlets, like literally the first practice, to where he is now. I mean, the work that's been put in by this staff, by Will, Phil Byer, that's gone now. I mean, like Phil, literally texts me just every other day and calls me and is like just so invested in this, and that's what it takes. It takes everybody kind of like to genuinely pour everything they have into it. You can't not love the people that started this thing, because they emptied their cup. I mean, they poured everything else they had into it. Man, it's just awesome.
Yeah, when Jordan Duffy had his first professional game, I saw obviously on Coach Ream's stories, everyone watching, everyone tuned in. And then you mentioned Coach Bauer. Just how much do those relationships mean to you and kind of keeping them throughout as people come and go?
I mean, that's what this is about. I mean, you can't not have the highest level of success unless it's more than hoops. It can't just be basketball, because that's a transaction. That's not a transformation. And we want this to be a life transfer. We want this to be genuinely life-giving, and there to be a different hope that's not just in your ability to shoot a basketball. I mean, honestly, because that dies, that ends, that quits. There's a shelf life to that. And, it supports winning too, though. That's the thing that's unique about, I think, being a part of a college basketball team, is there's still the mentorship that is really important from an education standpoint, from a life standpoint, that you enjoy. And that's what Jordan Duffy put on, is sent it to the entire team yesterday. Said, you don't realize how much I miss just being a part of the team. And sent a picture to our team of our whole group in a huddle. It's awesome.
Yeah. Coming back to this year, let's talk about the non-conference season, because that was stressful as any, with the difficult schedule I had, VCU, OU, Arkansas. You go through it. Starting off the season 4-7, just talk to me about getting through those first 11 games for you as a coach.
Ross was really good, man. Coach Hodge was big. tried to prepare me before the season. I've got to like, we're going to win every game and we're going to figure out how to win every game.
Yeah.
And Coach Hodge is a little more like, the schedule's crazy. This is stupid. We did this, and he's in charge of the scheduling with me, but I was the one that was really advocating for it. He was like, this is stupid. But I just felt like we wanted to push this team, but he was the one that kept telling me like, look, man, we're going to have to hang in there with this team differently. And like, we lost the close game at VCU and I was firing hot at two of our players. Like I was, and he was just like in the locker room in a coach's staff meeting. He's just like, before we go back out, he's like, hey, look, man, you have to be positive with this group, because you know how hard we played defensively, and I'm looking at it from like a holistic standpoint. Like, we had so many possessions that were empty, turned the ball over too much, and you look at other teams that went in there.
Yeah, I think you held them to 56
like
points.
had 20-something turnovers, and we had 18. So there were some strides that we knew we were making as a program, but it probably didn't happen as quickly as I wanted to, and I just had to be reminded that we're going to approach every game like we're going to win it. And our expectation is that we win it. It's not okay that we lose these basketball games, but where we move from there has to be in a encouraging, positive situation. And one area that we really focused on, that I think the reason why you look at our turnover percentage now, like right now, versus what it was like 8 games ago. And we've decided from a coaching standpoint, we're going to focus on telling our guys, this is what you're doing well. This is keep doing this. Like, we haven't shown any turnovers. Like, literally, we've shown positive plays and tried to encourage them to do more of what got us there, and really focused on that, as opposed to trying to say, don't do this. And I think that's kind of been what this year is, right? I mean, we work really hard in practice. We bust their tail in practice. But when it comes to games and how we move forward, it's all about, these are the areas that we can keep doing these. This is positive. This is what we do.
What do you believe kept the belief in your guys through that stretch?
There are just enough positive plays that we saw, and we knew the potential of some of the guys that hadn't had opportunities yet, specifically like Thomas. I mean, we knew where he could be because of his numbers that we have in practice. Were stats in practice, like Chris Blakely keeping up with all that, and Andy has such a good feel too. I mean, that's where those guys and staff, they can't communicate that, and they can't do that because of their role with players. But, just their ability to have feel and to communicate that with us as coaches, and we can pass that along. I mean, that's where this thing's a family deal. It's a team deal.
Yeah, and I mentioned before, it's been a struggle the past 2 years, closing out the year. Obviously, only one conference tournament win to this point. How did you go about kind of preparing this team for the long run, and kind of preparing this team for specifically the second half of conference play?
Well, that first year, ironically enough, was when we didn't have Duff, and he got a concussion at FAU. We didn't have our whole team together, and then we threw him in there, and he got to play like 10 minutes, and he was so pivotal to us. We lost to La Tech, and we were playing pretty good early, and we had like an intentional foul that like derailed the whole game. DJ threw an elbow, and it was like, it was over.
Exactly.
That was the end of the game. And Duff was playing so well before that, and we had just had another injury out, and so we were, you're just piecing it together. That's where we're at now. And even last year, we were still piecing it together, and that was my fault. I didn't do a good enough job of building the structure behind it. And this is now where I feel like that we've got so many things building in the right direction. And I mean, still, to win the CBI was the way you close the season. I mean, I know the conference tournament obviously wasn't, but I think that was indicative of that team. And then last year's team, nobody's left. We had the walking wounded play. So I think, if you're healthy, if we can find a way to do that, that's going to be our focus, is ramping it up for that. And I think, honestly, we were just scrapping to try to win any games we could win the last 2 years.
You were playing with 6 players.
We didn't even feel like that it was just the end. It was like the journey was really important, that we're establishing like a competitive. And I made a big mistake last year, I'll be honest. Like, we were playing at FAU. It's right after we had kind of had like some injuries, and I was like, forget it, man. We get up there, we're going to practice. And we did. We practiced, and it just was the wrong move. We wanted to send a message of that we're going to be tough, and I felt like that was our only chance. And that probably derailed us some more. We went into that game, and we just had no juice to us at FAU, and that was part of that slide. Those last 2 games determined whether we made it. And UAB winning those 2 games changed the whole deal. And they won at Western and won at Marshall, and knocked us out and put them in. I just, I thought moving forward, we were trying to be tougher than everybody else. And that hurt us. But that's where, as a coach, you grow and make mistakes, and I definitely made a mistake with that team.
Now, in this second half of conference play, what will be the key for this team to make that run this year?
I think it's defining the balance of creating a physical culture that can maintain your mentality going into games, because we've been able to separate because of our defense down the stretch of games and not turning the ball over and getting the right shots. And then making sure that we understand how we're going to win each game, and that our guys are prepared mentally on what it looks like, and they can go out there and envision it before, so they can go do it when the game's on the line. And before, we've just tried to I've controlled it to a point where I was making a lot of decisions during the games that helped us win. And now we're to the point where our guys know what's going into it, and they're communicating that with each other easier. And then they can go and like help each other through the game, as opposed to me feeling like I got to make sure this guy back cuts on this one and we get this matchup. And you can't control the game like that. You really can't. I mean, you can do it to an extent, but you can't win championships like that.
And you're so meticulous and you're so one game minded, but have you allowed yourself to look at the opportunity that y'all have to make a run at this?
Only because of our lack of success the last couple of years in that. I mean, you're wasting your time, right? I mean, I genuinely feel like you're wasting your time hearing anything about getting bigger crowds here or any of that. I mean, we want people to come to our games, but if I'm ever thinking about anything other than how we're like loving on these guys and preparing them to be their best. And I love interacting with people, and I want people to come to games. It's vitally important. But I mean, my heart this year is really to focus in on how do we invest in this group and make sure they're prepared for game day, and not make sure everybody else is prepared for game day and then our team's not playing well. And I've just kind of flipped it and really tried to put the emphasis on what we're doing to prepare these guys for each day.
And how would you describe this team in one word for the fans, for just going into this final half of the season?
Yeah, resilient. I mean, this is a resilient group, and to play as bad as, let's just take Javion, for example, as he did those first whatever games, and then to play this good. I mean, you can't not have a different passion and resiliency to how you approach it. And they love basketball, and they love each other. One example was at our retreat this year that changed everything for me and my perception of this team. We planned it, and there's a lot of things you plan when you get to team retreats that you get there and you're like, we're not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this isn't going to work. One of them was we were going to do karaoke the night afterwards and do like s'mores and like have a cookout. We had a bunch of hot dogs out there. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And we thought at that point, these dudes would be like, they've been around each other for 2 days. They ain't going to want to do this. We stayed out there for 2 hours and they wanted to keep going. Seriously. And every person karaoke'd except for me.
Except for you?
Yeah, everybody did. I mean, I was going to do it, but I was like, I'm actually a pretty good singer. So this may be like really jaw-dropping for them. Like, I'm not going to mess with them. But literally everybody did it, and everybody participated, and they wanted to keep going. And us as a staff, we're getting old, so we're like, we're out
Time
here.
to go to sleep.
I mean, like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning and like, 12 something. And these guys they stayed out there and kept hanging out. And that's when I knew this is different. Like, genuinely laughing and didn't want to go and separate and get like, let's go do this. And I mean, that's obviously October. I mean, September, October, you're not even into the season yet. I'm like, no, this is different. This is not like normal. And so that's where this team kind of always, when things get kind of bad individually, have a way of kind of rallying each other together. And it's a resilient group, man. They love each other. They don't just love basketball. They just don't love, just the wins. They actually enjoy like being here in the facility in the locker room together. So that part makes this team, I think, unique.